So finally, the countdown is over. Welcome to our show, Iqbal Amiri, a new author of a really profound book, as some of my friends who read it told me. So, I would love to hear the story, the background story of this book, and what made you think that it's a great idea to bring it out? What was your, um, you know, thought process when you were getting this in print? And how did you think it would impact? This is the whole, the gamut of questions that I'm going to put to you.
Okay.
So the first question is like, did you ever think as a financial person that you would, move into this kind of an area like writing, which is so different?
Yes, yes. Well, first of all, Mary, thank you so very much for inviting me. I appreciate it. I have a great deal of respect for you for all the volunteer work that you do and your singing passion and the way you have raised your two children. And I met your husband, and just a beautiful family. And I'm really proud to call you my friend. Um, with respect to my book, every time I would tell my story, people would ask, it's always very common where people say, okay, where are you from? How did you guys meet? They'll see me with my wife, Shamim, and they will ask me all these questions, and I will share, bits of stories. And they'll say, oh, wow, you should write a book, because they're all fascinated by my story, my history. And so this was like it had been marinating in my head for quite a number of years. And I actually decided 3 years ago that I was going to write something, and I'm going to write a memoir. Um, and when you write a memoir, you are putting yourself out there. The vulnerability is evident in my book, and you don't know how it's going to be received, how what friends are going to think, what family's going to think, what the clients are going to think, and all those things that come to your mind, and also the fact that you have to relive your life, the good
Mm.
and the bad. So that was a bit of a challenge, is to relive that and to put myself out there. Recently, I was asked to speak at a conference in Ottawa, and it was about diversity, multiculturalism, and the challenges of being a person of color in a Canadian society when we're doing business, financial business, investments and insurance and all those sorts of things, and how it had impacted
I'm
them.
going to butt in one question because, we should have started with your introduction. So maybe now you can talk about your financial business a little bit before you
Sure,
go further into your writing.
sure, sure. So yeah, so I have a financial services business. Shamim and I, my wife and I, we run it. We have an office in Edmonton and Camrose, and I've been in the business since '91. So it's been 32 years that I've been
Wow.
in this business, and happy to say that we've been blessed with good clientele, with very successful business. I'm also fortunate that my wife works with me. My wife, whom I've known since she was 15 years old,
Wow.
and my high school sweetheart. So yes, so that's my business. And
But I am also aware that you do some social work.
Yes. So, I belong to Ismaili Muslim community, and it's we have various committees where we work on the social welfare side of things, where economic side of things, and burial services, and so on and so forth. So I've served in all three of those, and there are very many other
Wow.
resettlement committees and so on for people who are settling from developing countries, from war-torn countries, and so being new in Canada, they obviously need a lot of guidance in terms of where to turn, which departments to turn to for resources, and so on, to find employment, and so on. So over the last 42 years that I've been in Edmonton, I've served in very various institutions. um, and whether it's internal within the community or outside, we've tried to do whenever possible to participate, whether it's the blood bank or the food bank. We tried to serve. We did a 40K cancer walk. Shamim and I. No, actually, it was a
Wow,
60K. Excuse me, 60K cancer walk.
that's
This is going back
amazing.
years. Yes, yes. It was in 2 days we had to do it, and there was a actually it was a lot of fun because Shamim and I we were just walking and talking and just kind of and in two
You
days
did
we
60K in 2 days.
correct.
How did you achieve that? My goodness, I did 20K and I'm like huffing and puffing.
So I think we had 35K in day one and
Okay.
25 in day two,
Okay.
and we
Wow.
had blisters, and I mean we had, and it's funny that there were women because this was primarily, I think that in the entire there were hundreds of people, and I think there was 6 men in the entire walking group. There were 6 men and there were hundreds of women. So
Wow.
so I felt totally out of place, and it was fun. I mean, thankfully it was my wife was there, Shamim was there, so it was fun to kind of for us it was just a nice walk, and it was fun.
Yeah, I just wanted to present you as a very all-rounded person that I know already you are. And so
Thank you.
I just wanted to touch on the different elements of your life. And the other thing is you're a parent to two beautiful daughters. So talk about that.
Thank you. Yes, I've been blessed with we have 2 daughters. Funny thing is that when our first child was born, Sanya, uh, 1992. No, sorry, 1991. Excuse me. I should know this. 1991. Um, you know, we never did the gender reveal thing. We did not want to know. And of course, when you go for for the ultrasound, you can find out the sex of the child, the gender of the child, and we didn't really want to know that. And uh, you know, and coming from a Persian East Indian background, they all says, "You want a boy?" That was the comment that we were getting from friends, and of course, you want a boy, right? I said, I really don't care as long as the baby is healthy. I really don't care. And we were in fairly economic dire straits. We were struggling quite a bit at the time. I just lost my job 3 weeks before the baby arrived, and we had a very high interest mortgage, 18% in those days. And
Oh, wow.
now, if we hear 5 or 6%, people are up in arms that we're paying such high interest. We paid 18%, and I said, whatever that we are blessed with, we are happy. And of course, we had a daughter. And I said, look, we have and I think in Hindi we call Lakshmi, right?
Yeah.
I'm not Indian, nor am I of Hindu persuasion, but Lakshmi is a good thing. It says, she would bring me luck and prosperity and all those sorts of things, and she did. Our luck changed after she arrived. We were doing well, and then our second one arrived, and of course, when the second one arrived, everybody would say, well, of course you want a boy because you already have a girl, so you would want a boy. And I said, I don't care. Of course, I don't care. If I get a boy, we get a boy. If we get a girl, we get a girl. But it would be kind of nice to have a sister for the older one, right? So the two sisters can be good friends. And but we get what we get. And of course, we had another daughter, and she brought second Lakshmi, so she got more luck to us, more blessings and more prosperity. So now they're both married. They're both doing very well. The older one, Sanya, is a nurse practitioner. The younger one, Sanam, is a psychologist in working in Calgary. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you got your two sons as well.
Yes, daughters will bring sons-in-laws, right? So we have 2 sons. You know, um, Sanam's, who is the younger one and the shortest among the family, she has got the tallest husband. Her husband is like
Wow.
6'4". So her husband is a foot taller than her. Of course, plays basketball, and he's a chiropractor. And Sanya's husband, Irfan, who is a physiotherapist. So yeah, they're both doing. All four of them are doing well. All four of them are professionals, and so it's good that they're all educated and doing very well.
Yeah, that's a lovely story, and I'm so happy for your success and your children too. They're amazing kids. So, you also have many interesting hobbies like walking and singing, um, and you have all these, like, great elements of your personality. So I just wanted to bring out all these things before we actually talk about your book. So thank you so much for sharing with us, and now we can talk about how you got into this, the story, and what impact did you think your book would make on people of multicultural communities.
So there were several things I wanted to share. You know, when we see in the news sells because of the news media in general is a dispenser of doom and gloom in the world. They don't nobody talks about all the good things that are happening. We generally focus on wars and division and all those sorts of things. And I feel that each person has a very unique story. Like some time ago in your show, you had Pritish Esanwa, a lawyer from Nigeria, and you spoke to her, and she practiced in Nigeria, but then she came over here and qualified and had to go through requalification to practice law, and then she's a lawyer here. Now she has her own unique story that she shared in your show. Now, for me, I feel that there's no degree of how bad it was for one person versus the other. It's very unique to that individual. So my story is very unique to me and what I went through as a child, and having lived through two wars, and living in different countries, and what you have to challenges that you have to go through. And then as you become an adult and you move to a country which is completely different culturally, language wise, religion, values, ethics, all those sorts of things. And what does it take, and how does the society treat you in that process? So that's something that I wanted to share, that regardless to how good or bad, don't gauge it well. Somebody else had a worse story than yours, so yours is not worth it, worth sharing. That's not fair to you, because you're an individual. So what the pain and suffering that you went through, you need to acknowledge that, you need to accept it, you need to value it, you need to honor it, and only then you can become a whole person and have peace inside if you do that.
Right.
Otherwise, you're always living in relative war. Relative to who? Relative to this person, that person. So the world of relativism is not of something that I subscribe to. I feel that each individual should value and honor their own story.
That's beautiful. I love that line. I'll keep that line forever. So I know that there was a lot of trauma in all the experiences you had. I mean, first of all, the fact that you didn't have a stable place where you could call home, where you kept moving from one country to the other because of wars and all this stuff. And the kind of visual imagery that you describe in your book is absolutely mind blowing. Like, I don't know whether I would have survived the way you have. And, so what are the lessons you learned from your experiences, and how did you move through all the post traumatic stress that you must have experienced?
Yes, the wars. Well, there are several things. I feel that Let's put aside religion for a moment and personal faith and personal beliefs for a moment. I feel that the universe is not unfair. Universe is just, and it levels itself, or it what's the word I'm looking for? It balances itself. So
I think you want to say something like what goes around comes around.
right. But what happens is that if we go through a moment of suffering, and we go through a short period of suffering or long period of suffering, it is followed by a long period of peace and tranquility and success and so on. It's You're never in one position forever, I feel. It's because universe balances out. That's what I would like to use. The universe balances things out. The more suffering you have, the more uh, uh, you know peace you will have. Now, when we look at balancing, I don't mean that a gold platter full of jewel is going to come to you all of a sudden in the middle of the night. That okay, well, because of all his suffering, here's a tray full of gems and cash and all that. That's not what I mean. I mean that in terms of your good health, inner peace, your ethics, your values, your friends, your family, your health, all of that is part and parcel of the blessing of the grace you receive back from universe. Now, if you are of a certain faith, you can attribute that to the faith. So if you are of a Christian persuasion, you can certainly credit that to your faith in Jesus. If you are a Muslim, you can certainly attribute that faith to Allah or Muhammad, uh, or if you're Jewish or Buddhist or whatever, or Hindu, doesn't really matter. It's your faith in something greater than yourself, basically.
Yeah.
So when I was very young, I saw wars. I could hear gunfire and bombs and stuff like that at night when I was in Bangladesh, which used to be East Pakistan. In the morning, I would see dead bodies with bullet holes and stuff like that, which nobody should see. Whether you are a child or an adult, nobody should see that because it never goes away. The sight and the smell never goes away. And then we moved to West Pakistan, which is now known as Pakistan, port city of Karachi. And there was a war again between India and Pakistan in 1971-72. And again, there was war. And at that time, I didn't see any dead bodies, but the trauma that was from the previous years from Bangladesh just continued on, right? So I remember, at one time I was playing, with marbles. I don't know if some countries have, these little marbles, glass marbles, and you play with that. So I was playing with that and with a bunch of friends, and a plane flew over. It was a regular passenger plane, and I was used to jet fighters flying over. So the moment that happened, I dropped in my knees and got into a fetal position, thinking that it
My
was a jet
gosh,
fighter going to drop a bomb, basically, right?
that's so sad.
That is it. So, yeah, I mean that takes. So as you fast forward into your life, um, what happens is and this is something that was actually funny thing is that it was my wife was mentioning because she takes the emotional transfer technique program for mental wellness. She's now certified for mental wellness, and she was telling me about a professor who said that in your current age, when you're 40, 50, 60 years old, something happens that is traumatic, that stresses you, takes you back to when you were 7, 8 years old, when you
Yeah.
experienced trauma, and then you behave like that. So you know how when we say sometimes that, oh, look, this guy is just behaving like a child. That is true. He is behaving like a child because that trauma has taken him back to when he was a child, and his
Yeah. It's
reaction
called
is very,
adverse childhood experiences.
yeah. So those things happen, and I think that it's very, very important for us to put ourselves in somebody else's shoe when we are speaking with somebody, and if they're behaving in a certain way. I think that society has moved advanced, especially society of like in which we live in Canada, where we are more respectful and say, okay, why would be doing this instead of just reacting, negatively or strongly, we try to understand, well, why is he angry? Why is he sad? Or why is she saying this? Why is she crying? Because it may have taken back her to her childhood, and she might be sad or angry because something happened to her as a child, and that moment has just brought her back there. So we should try to understand people and put ourselves in their shoe.
So do these memories come back to you with something that happens now in the recent future, present?
Sometimes it does, especially when you go through moments of stress. It does take me back, and especially when I was writing my book, um, I had to relive all of those things. So there was a moment like last year was not a very good year for me emotionally because I had to relive a lot of those moments. And so I guess what I'm trying to tell people with my book is that you are stronger than you think you are. You are more resilient than you think you are. Um, you have more strength than you think you do, and you can adapt to new situations better than you think you do. Because people get stuck in this, well, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, or I cannot handle this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to tell people with my book that, hey, you know what? You are pretty smart and pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, don't tell your body that you're not. Don't tell your mind. Your mind is always thinking negative, right? You bring them back from the back of your mind, which is always, the thinking about, because remember, as a it's a fight or flight, like hunter gatherer mind. That's our back of our mind, right? Where we're only
Yeah.
thinking as hunter gatherers is, okay. Well, we're gonna fight or we're gonna run, right? I think that's how, but you have to stop and say, we just wait a second. I have good friends. I've got a good friend like Mary that I can talk to, right? I've other good friends that I can talk to. I can just sit with a cup of coffee or chai or tea or whatever that you may enjoy, and sit down and just reflect and say, hey, you know, it could be worse, but here I am.
Yeah, it's such an amazing, the whole, the way you went through this whole thing. And what are the pointers you have for people who faced like really difficult situations? What would you say, like, if they go through these things and they beat themselves up, and they are not able to achieve the goals that they put for themselves, what would you tell such people?
So I'll go back to COVID times. COVID times was a bad time for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel that. So what did I do during that time? I'm sitting in my sunroom, which is where I'm at right now. This is my office, which I was working from here. And at that time, George Floyd issue was going on, the Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter, and so on and so forth. And I feel that what I did was that I got into online education programs. One of the things that I did, and you don't have to go to a fancy school and pay a lot of tuition. There are lots of free classes that are available online. I did take a sort of a fee-based program at Harvard University, and I love history. So, and one of the things I learned there, and this relates to your question, is that I had always heard the term white man's burden, but I didn't really fully understand what it meant. Okay. And in this program that I took, and because I love history, and I just love reading about history because it tells me why things are the way they are. Because if you go back 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, you know that it started there, basically. And the white man's burden, the notion was, this was in the early middle, actually 19th century, and which was actually amplified by Rudyard Kipling. And Kipling is known as a very famous author, poet, right?
Yeah, I do know his writings.
Uh, so if you read White Man's Burden, what does he say? He talks about white supremacy, that it is the white person's responsibility to educate and teach the non-white people because they're inferior. White culture is superior, everybody else is inferior. And this is at the time when US and Philippines were at war, and he was telling that to the president at the time, I think it was Roosevelt. And the notion that since the Philippines are inferior people, Americans should go there and take over and set them straight. Now, this was the British. Now, the
And
French sort of
civilize the barbarians.
civilized the barbarians because we were all uneducated, right? And barbarians. So now the French took that as that, yeah, it's our responsibility to train these and educate these people. So what happened was that that was a very conscious bias of white supremacy, which trickled down to a unconscious bias because generationally it trickled down and but it's still there. And then with what we call unconscious bias, basically. So when people come over here and then we refer to them as, okay, this brown person or a black person or a this when we talk about Africa as an example, right? We talk Africa and we think, oh, these, we always show on TV, what do we see? We see these young children with a bloated belly and looking for
Yeah,
food,
malnourished.
malnourished kids. Well, do we know how Africa was robbed of all its resources even to this day? Right. So when people come in and I say to them, look, you know uh, be proud of who you are and your culture. You don't have to buy into this narrative. All right, you don't have to buy into this narrative that you are somehow inferior. You may not know all of the things in Canada. When you move from another country, you may not be familiar with the language, mannerism. You may not know about how the society functions. You may not know about something basic like traffic laws or things like that. That is okay. You can learn all of those things, right? But what I'm saying is that um, everybody, like for me, I feel that it takes 10 years for a newcomer who are fully engaged in the society to to adapt fully into a culture. So, you're watching the television news, you're watching TV shows, you're watching the politics that happen. You can understand the jokes because there's some political joke or something of TV. Like I tried to tell a joke to this one person and he had no idea what I was talking about. And it was a political joke about I was making fun of this politician. And then I realized, okay, well, this person is still very new and they're not fully engaged in the local politics. So how is this supposed to understand that I'm joking, right?
Yeah.
So what happens in my view is that then we fall into this narrative that, okay, well, we're not good enough
Yeah.
because we don't know. And I do have a several
Because
of
we
my.
don't have Canadian education, we don't have Canadian experience. You go for any interview, people ask you, do you have Canadian experience? And I think that's a very racist question. Like, what do you mean by Canadian experience? Do you do something in a different way? So teach us, because we are taken by your country. So you can teach us, right? We are not dumb. We are all intelligent people. So it makes me kind of sad that people ask this question. Even today, like if you go for an interview, they'll ask you, do you have Canadian experience? What are you trying to ask me? Are you trying to ask me whether I understand how you speak, whether I can converse like you, whether I can work like you? I think maybe I can work even better. I have a great work ethic because I'm so dedicated to my work. And I find it's sometimes even better than some of the people in the mainstream community. We come with such a strong commitment to work hard and to build our lives in this new country, because if we don't, we'll fall back, and we don't want to do that. So we have to really fight the system to move forward. And all of us have seen that. So
Yes.
that my question to you was basically that, you have really touched the ceiling when it comes to how you've progressed in your life and how you've done so well for yourself and your family. So how do people like follow in your footsteps? What are the things that they need to put in place so that they don't fall back and become second-grade citizens as immigrants?
Well, I feel that first of all, you have to find a path and then just work that path during good times and bad times, right? When I started, I was working in retail, just like a newcomer. You work in retail, right? You are
Hmm.
working at a like I was working at a Canadian Tire store. You work at retail, or you work at hospitality, like Tim Hortons and Wendy's and wherever. Then we can get a job basically because we need the money to put food, shelter, food, clothing, and shelter, because we don't come from a place where we just say to the government, okay, government, give me money, like we had that happens here. We are self-reliant basically, right? So I feel that the best thing that happened to me was that when I got laid off in 1991, it was the worst time in my life because married, um, in 2 years after I bought a house, we are expecting our first child, or a year after we bought a house, after expecting our first child, and I got laid off, and then from an industry that I'd worked for 8 years.
Wow.
It was horrible. It was a horrible experience. Now, then I made a decision. I said, oh, you know what? This was probably the best thing that happened to me, because if I had not been pushed out, and I thank my God for that, my God, I thank God for that. There's only one. I think nature, the universe, whatever you call it, for that, the nature, it said to me was that, hey, you're in the wrong place. How are you going to have a family? How are you going to raise a family when you're working 16-hour days and being treated like, you know, like a mule basically? How are you going to have raise a family? You won't have enough money, you won't have enough time. I did not know that at the time until it happened to me. Then I
Hmm.
said, okay, I have to find a path and I need to work it. So I joined the insurance industry in 1991, and it was terribly hard work because at that time the revenue, the income that I made was based on commission.
Wow.
So when there's no guaranteed salary except for the first 6 months, when you don't have a guaranteed salary, like I remember sitting with a client because they wanted to meet with me at 11 o'clock at night. So I said, okay, I'll meet with you at 11 o'clock at night. And I sat with him. I knew that I had a baby at home and a wife to look after. So I worked that. I remember once we had to go, I had to go to Alberta Beach in the winter. And remember, this is no when there were no GPS.
Whoa.
And in Alberta Beach, they don't have very many, like at that time, there were no street lights or anything like that. So I had to take a map, go all the way to Alberta Beach, which is very far from here, only to find out that, oh, I was trying to call you. There were no cell phones those days. I was trying to call you that we can't see you tonight. So I was at the door, knock on the door, and they say, oh,
Oh
I
my
can't see you.
God.
Yeah, yeah. So and this is on a Friday night. I'm just thinking I was so upset. So, but you have to take, I guess what I'm saying is that the path that you take, stay consistent on that path, even though you may come across potholes and
Hmm.
you may come across, you know, you may have some nice pathway to, you may write some, good times and advance yourself. There'll be some potholes, bigger potholes, smaller potholes. Stick to a plan and stay with it, because when you do that, you're showing resiliency. Okay. Number two is that you're learning more and becoming an expert in your field, because not everybody will have the same experience as you do because they have fallen off the path.
Hmm.
Okay. So stick to the plan, and that's how you. I feel that then your success is just a byproduct. It's guaranteed.
So at what point would you say that you decided that you have to start a business? And so you moved from your insurance job to doing your own business.
Yes. So what I realized in the first few years of my business is that when I was talking to clients, and I'm not the person who would just go after friends and family. Like I did not really want to burden them, where every time they see me, they would change their lane because they'll say, okay, Iqbal is going to come and talk to me about investments or insurance or something. I did not want to do that. So I went after just clients that I wanted to just um, and what I discovered is that when they were buying a product, they were actually buying me before the product. They were trusting me.
Yeah.
And I felt that I was working with one company at the time. Uh, and I thought, well, that one company doesn't have all the products at the top level that is available in the market. So I'm not necessarily giving my client available in the market. I'm giving them the best part that the company has, which is one
Hmm.
company. So then I thought, well, maybe I'm doing a disservice to my clients. So I decided that I'm going to go on my own and again take another leap of faith and just do this on my own and start my company. So in 95, 96, I went on my own. Again, Sanam, our younger one, second one, had arrived in 94. And 95, 96, I had two young babies. And I remember my manager at the time telling me that he said, Iqbal, either one of the two, either you are the most stupidest person or or a very smartest entrepreneur to make this move. And I said, well, entrepreneurs are usually a little bit stupid because they don't want to think about all the dangers. They just jump and they hopefully that they'll be successful. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, when you jump, you can do paragliding or skydiving or whatever, right? So that's
Yes,
what you
yes.
did. So thank you for your amazing story. My goodness, it's just starting from scratch and really making big business, and it's huge. And I'm sure there are so many lives that you've impacted through the business you do. So would you like to share something about any clients who've given you some great feedback?
Well, my best see the in my business, especially on the insurance side, it's not a win-win. It's a win-lose, unfortunately, right? Because someone has to get sick or pass away for the benefits to kick in, basically, right?
Okay.
So what happened was that I expanded my business in southeast of Edmonton. So in Camrose and Wetaskiwin and all those areas. And in 2010, I bought a fairly sizable business there. And in 2012, I met this businessman after a year of sort of pursuing him. It was an existing client there, and I convinced him that with some tax planning that he needed to for his legacy planning because he was a business owner that he had to do some planning using insurance contracts. So he understood that and he said, okay, reluctantly because the premium was high because it was a big amount of coverage and it was corporate and everything else. His wife was not convinced that they should be, wasting all this money on insurance and all that stuff. And but anyways, the husband convinced her. I made some compelling arguments that they should to protect her if something were to happen to him. Now, at that time, the man was about 49 years old or something like that. Now, when I applied for it, turned out that he had some health issues, which increased his premium because of it was not a normal health, so it would be additional premium. So I had to go back to them, and the wife said, "See, these insurance companies are a bunch of thieves. They just want to take all your money, and they are bad people, and blah blah blah." Just went on and on and on. Anyways, I convinced her that look, because he has health issues, it's all the more reason that he should have it. Anyways, I did that, set it up. 2014, he was diagnosed with cancer. 2015, he died. When he died, the wife got about almost $2.5 million tax free.
Whoa,
Yeah,
tax free? It
tax free.
happens like that?
Yep, yep. And then what happened is that I paid off all the company debt, I paid off all her personal debt, paid off all the mortgages, including the cottage. Plus, I put in about $1 million worth of what I call a retirement bond, because at that time she was only 52 when she lost her husband.
My God.
So I have to look after her, and then the two sons they were going to run the business, and I wasn't sure how they will run the business if they were to, scuttle the
Bring
business.
everything to the ground.
Yeah, and then she would at least have money,
Yeah.
and assets in the company, and plus the insurance and the investment bond that I've done. So we have stories like that, and there are many like that, right? So I feel that,
Now that wife must be so indebted to you for all you did.
I mean, she reluctantly agrees that that what I did was the right thing. So it's not always for us. Yes, we get paid. I mean, everybody gets paid. I mean, if you go to the doctor, they get paid. Your lawyer gets paid. Your accountant get paid. So I'm not ashamed of getting paid from what I do. It's just that convincing people to look after themselves financially and secure themselves is the because it's not a tangible thing, right? I mean, you're not buying a furniture or a car where you have it right away, where you can say, or a big nice artwork, say, okay, well, there you go, you have something tangible. Basically, all I'm giving you is a piece of paper that says, well, if something happens, we'll protect you financially. Hopefully, you don't need it, but when you do need it, it's there, right? So,
Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. It is such an amazing success story what you've told me. My last question to you would be like, when people don't do these things, what are the kind of shortfalls that can happen to them? And like why don't people actually get financially stable in this country? Because what I see is people just keep on buying and having so much debt.
hmm. Well, I'm sure you have heard of GoFundMe, which is online. You're asking people for money. And the saddest part was that I knew this man many years ago. He passed away at a young age. He died by suicide,
Oh,
and
wow.
his wife had to set up a GoFundMe page because he himself was not properly secured. He had not secured himself. So there are lots of issues. Number one is that a lot of people are unaware that what kind of products are available to protect yourself. Number one. Number two, the fear of the unknown. I don't know who to talk to. What if, I get taken? What if somebody's going to give me bad advice, or there's all those sorts of things. Third thing is that the resources people just don't have when they're starting out. They don't have the resources to set something up, so they're just focused on just survival.
Hmm.
In the early days. But I feel that as things get a little bit more stable and people get a little, start to make a little bit of money, they should look at ways of saving money. Like, for example, the new law that has come out with respect to saving money for new home, for the home buyers program, first time home buyers program, which is going to be available to Canadians shortly. This allows you to save money to buy a house, and the savings are tax deductible, which is a fantastic thing. People just don't know it, right? Our ESP, sometimes people don't know it, for education program. Retirement savings, RRSP, sometimes people don't know the benefits of that, or tax-free savings account. There's so much there. Then it's okay. What do I do now? What is the best path for you? And I say, just talk to your people you deal with, your financial advisor if you have
I
one.
haven't heard enough, but our time is nearly running out.
Yes,
So
yes, yes, yes.
I just feel that I'll have to set up a second meeting with you to hear more. And so exciting to know. I'm not very financially sound. My husband is, and I'm sure he has lots of financial plans and things, but I'm zero when it comes to that. So we can surely talk, and it's so exciting to hear from somebody who's achieved this level of expertise as like you, Iqbal. Thank you so much. How does it feel for you to join the club of authors in Canada?
Wow, that's it hasn't sunk in yet. Just the fact that, like, I was to be introduced as an author. This is the third time. and this this show, and then two other previous thing. It hasn't sunk in yet as a to be called an author. But what I would like to close with though is that I would like to say to your listeners, if one thing that you're going to take away from my book, if you know, and as I said previously, your experience is unique to you. Honor it, and because you are stronger than you think. Enjoy the moment, because there are no guarantees about tomorrow. What you have is today. Enjoy the moment. Honor yourself. Um, you are you are important. Your feelings, your emotions, your experiences are all important. Your experiences will only make you stronger. So thank you very
Wow.
much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Of course,
I'm
my
so
pleasure.
grateful to have you in the show and had this beautifully, uh, you know, uh, expressed story, which I'm sure has touched a lot of people who are watching this. Thank you so much, Iqbal. Until we meet again, thank you.
Thank you so very much.